Hello and welcome to Psychology Live. I'm Dr. Gail Majcher, and with me is Mary DiPaolo, limited licensed psychologist, and we're so glad that you're joining us. During our last show, we started talking about people who talk at you, and they don't listen to your feedback, but they talk at you. So we started talking about some strategies you can use, but you might want to listen to that show because we talked about why people do that.
Watch that show. We're on YouTube, not on the radio anymore. Remember?
What did I say? Listen.
You said listen to us. It's like
We used to have a radio show.
Yes, we did.
First all-female radio show in Detroit.
That's
anyway.
right. And you know what else we should clarify for our viewers here? You might be the person that talks at other people. It's not always that people are talking at us. We may have the bad habit of talking at other people too, and we don't even know it. So watch the show with that in mind as well, because if you're one of those talk at type of people, don't wonder anymore why people kind of, oh yeah, I gotta go.
Exactly.
And your friends are like going over the course of time instead of, or maintaining, because you may be that person and you're not recognizing it in yourself.
That's right. This might be the perfect opportunity for you to hear this whole concept and to grow from it.
Right.
In the last show, I talked about someone I'd actually confronted about it, and he never realized it, and he changed.
Right.
So it's something good for you too. I want to say one thing. There are people working outside the windows here today, so if you hear banging, that's what it is.
That's them.
Yeah. So, all right, we're going to get back to how do we deal with these people who talk and they don't want to communicate back and forth. They just want to talk at you, and that can cause anxiety to the listener. So what should you do? We talked about going to the restroom or making a break, but sometimes you can't. Sometimes you're stuck there with the person for whatever reasons. So what should you do?
Right, and we mentioned how you catch them between breaths as a first strategy, because everybody has to breathe. They can't just talk without taking a breath. So that's the first strategy, is you catch them between breaths.
Okay, another strategy that it is very helpful sometimes. We had mentioned in the last show that sometimes people do this because they actually need attention, and it's their way of being reinforced. So you can break through while they're talking and say, wait a minute, I want to tell you something. That was a very relevant point. That was excellent what you were just saying. And I want to tell you something about it. So you're giving them the positive reinforcement that they need to feel better about themselves. And many times these people are bright people. They are saying something of value. So it's cutting in, giving them the kudos for what they're doing, but then taking the conversation back over.
Right. That would be considered the engaging fully with them when you're with them. You have to look them in the eye. You have to be able to smile. You reflect back on what they were saying that you found meaningful or interesting and say so that they don't keep just going, not letting you provide any feedback, because ultimately anybody who's in conversation with each other wants to understand and be understood, except these talk adders always want to be understood but not necessarily want to understand.
And they want to be reinforced for what they're saying. They want that positive affirmation that, I am smart, and what I'm saying is of value.
And I do matter. And
I do matter.
And that is one of the reasons, just to, not belabor a point, but if you want to understand how talk adders come to be, they didn't get enough of what they wanted to when they needed it. They didn't get enough validation. They may have been actually punished or ignored for having a need and making it known as a child. I mean, there's so many things that contribute to why a person stops listening themselves to other people, because if they've never been or rarely been listened to, why should they listen to other people? They're too used to just being talked at themselves, and now think, okay, now it's my turn. Since I'm a grown-up, I can talk at other people.
Yeah, a lot of behaviors are just learned. So
Right.
That can just be a learned behavior. Like you're talking about it as a coping technique. This person needed affirmation, maybe didn't get it or got too much, because it can be over or under gratification that causes us to act in a certain way. So for whatever reasons, they've learned to just talk at people. But that doesn't mean that we have to just sit back and get a knot in our stomach and accept it. we can jump in. Another strategy that I've used when someone's talking at me, if I'm like in a social setting, I'll grab someone else in and say, oh, you know what Bob was talking about? I think you'll find this interesting. And I'll slowly make my way out.
Okay, it is a strategy. I'm not sure necessarily it's a appropriate one for that person you brought in there, like me in the past, but okay.
I know you can handle yourself.
Yeah, right. No, and it's kind of funny because when we're in a social situation, which is kind of funny, I should, not like I should be blowing our cover here about how it rolls when we're together in social situations.
You can imagine we have fun.
She's notorious. Like, I see the what going down, and she's like, la la la, all happy or whatever, and I'm like, okay, wait a minute. So I say what needs to be said in the moment to like wrap it up because, she's very kind. Me, okay, I know how to be kind, but not so much because my whole philosophy of life is you start it, I'm going to finish it. So
that's pretty funny.
So, beside engaging fully with the person and giving them validation and attention, another strategy is you set the time limit right from the get-go. Now, we've been talking primarily about social situations, but, we understand this talk at you stuff can go on at work and in your professional capacity, whatever you do. So if you're being called into a meeting or whatever, it is okay to say, I'm here, I made time to be here, but I have to be somewhere else in 15 minutes. So in other words, you're letting the group or the person know whatever you're going to talk about, hey, narrow it down to its most important salient points so we're clear on what it is you want, what it is that, the current status is, and what I have to do, my part, in resolving this issue or getting her done or whatever.
That is such a good point because you can use that anywhere. Mm-hmm. If someone starts talking at you, you can go, of course we don't wear watches anymore. You can look at your phone.
But I do.
And say, oh my gosh, look at the time. Listen, I only have about 5 minutes. So give me the main point of what you're saying because it's interesting.
Right.
And if you know it's only 5 minutes, then okay, you can deal with that. So putting a time frame on it, I think is very important to do in whatever setting you're in.
Right, and phones too. If you're on the phone, if somebody calls you, you can say, oh yeah, I just picked up, but I only have a few minutes because I have to blah, 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 especially if you know that as a person who could talk at you for an hour.
I remember talking to someone on the phone, this goes back over 40 years ago, and I was big and pregnant, and we're talking on the phone. She was a talk adder. I actually put the phone down, went and did something, came back, and she was still talking.
Well, I hate
That's
to tell
before
you.
I knew to say, you know what, I need to
Right.
go.
When I was a kid, one of my best friends said, not only did she get off the phone while I was talking at her, she went and made a sandwich and came back and ate it, and I was still talking. Because I was kind of a talk at her when I was a kid, just saying.
Now, that's funny.
Well, I was and I'd talk about any damn thing. I'd talk about the sun, the moon, the stars, the movies, all kind of stuff. But yeah, you got to learn to slow your roll. So I am an offender. I am a talk adder type of person, or at least I was on blast when I was younger. And I learned you got to slow it down. You got to pay attention to your listener, and you have to have it be mutual if there's going to be any mutual understanding and true intimacy. Remember intimacy? Intimacy. A talk adder doesn't have emotional intimacy with anybody because they're too busy talking at them.
Yeah, they're not aware. They're not aware. It's that lack of empathy.
Right.
I have facilitated many meetings for corporations, for church, whatever. And inevitably, somebody in there will be a person who's a talk adder and wants to take over. Now, when you're the facilitator, it's very easy then to shut it down and say, we can only let people have so many minutes, so can you wrap that up?
Right.
But you can actually use that in real life too. Like, you know what? I'm not good at listening this long, so I like what you're saying, but can you kind of bottom line it for me?
Right.
Can you wrap it up?
Right.
I have said that. I'm a little ADD-ish, so would you mind just kind of wrapping that up for me?
And that's our last point before we have to go. Strategy is help them park the bus. That's how you help them park the bus. That's how you help them land the plane. And, okay, what do we got to do now? Got to go. What's your last point so I can either do that or you can do it and we're done.
Okay, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.